Chiefs are rolling. This is where it starts for them to get ready for the Super Bowl that they're going back to. It starts with an injury report, how they get prepared, and when they get to Arizona for this ball game. A lot to cover today. This is Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Lot to go over today. Welcome back. I am freshly back in the studio from some time in the sun. You may notice a little scarring here. Don't be alarmed. I'm going to be fine. But, Mobile, it gets hot from time to time. Welcome back, folks. It's time to get excited because things are starting to develop some momentum. Chris and Matt have been talking about this while I was gone, and now we're going to get into a couple of pieces here. Thanks for making us your first listen for your Super Bowl team, the Kansas City Chiefs, even if you're an Eagles fan, and I know some of you are listening. Thanks for coming by. Make sure you like, sub, and hit the bell. We are your team every day on every channel for free everywhere, whether you're an Eagles fan, a Chiefs fan, or, for all you down under that want to watch this game too, welcome. Lot to tell you about in terms of our takes. I'm Ryan Tracy, the founder of Rogue Analytics and Performance Consulting, NFL33.com, and RGR Football.
I'm Chris Clark. Thank you all for listening. We really do appreciate it. And I am still out on the road, so this is me for today and tomorrow, and I will be back in my studio next week. A lot to talk about, though. A lot going on with Kansas City, a lot going on in the NFL in general. And so let's just dive in.
It's an interesting time because the organization is spread thin, and we have so many things going on, like medical things. We're going to talk about the injury report here in a second. You have everything that they have to do in order setting the roster this week, see if there's any maneuvers. You have all the logistics. We're going to talk about some of that and how it affects the team and its preparation here a little bit later. And then you have all the scouting department, a number of which I ran into in Mobile, like a huge cluster of dudes that are obviously live on the road. Scouts are always on the road, but you got to have guys there that can pick up the slack because you still got to scout the next class. And that was really interesting too. We'll talk about that more post Super Bowl, and I'll give you guys some insights about what I was watching, what I saw, obviously, as it all comes down. As it hits, there's always injuries that you have to overcome. Maybe some of those guys were in Mobile. We'll see what happens in the future, but I want to go over this concept that came out today because I saw a few people, I think, overreact because of concerns of what an estimated practice report is. And that it really isn't anything to be concerned about other than the fact that they're trying to say if they went out to the field today and had to practice, this is what would have happened. We would have designated X, Y, and Z here, here, and here. I don't think it's anything to get in a cluster about. Do you?
I don't know that I'd say you need to get in a cluster about it, but I would say that it's concerning that you have a lot of guys that are sitting there injured that you really are going to hope that they're going to be playing in this game.
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, that's the nice way to put it. The way that it came down is they listed Willie Gay and Trey Smith were limited if they had gone today. Mecole Hardman, Juju Smith-Schuster, Sneed, and Kadarius Toney, 3 wide receivers, and your top DB were all unable to practice if this were a real practice today. It's not earth-shattering to me because I think we kind of got that kind of feel. The addition of Trey, I don't know what that comes down to. I didn't see a designation about what it was. But Willie Gay's right about where I thought he was, that he'd be able to do a walkthrough or something light. So like that injury was significant enough that he had to come out, but not anything that I think is going to keep him out of the Super Bowl. Good for them that they're not practicing because you don't want to re-injure it because maybe that could keep you out of the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and I think I was kind of surprised about Willie Gay personally because I was not sure he would practice. Him being in limited capacity is better than I expected. Trey Smith, I think he got rolled up on. His ankle got rolled up on during the game, so that's not really surprising to me. He was limping pretty bad and really powering through. So I understand why they have him limited, and so I think that's a good sign. All 3 of the wide receivers and Sneed, that's a big problem. The question with Sneed is he even going to be available since this is his second time in the concussion protocol this year?
Yeah, that's going to be the big thing. We saw Tua Tagovailoa just come off, and I would think it's been 6 weeks for him. Everybody responds differently, and every concussion leads down a different path of like how long it takes to recover, what the process is, when you hit milestones. I hope that it goes smoothly. I think that he recovered pretty well last time. Anytime it's within a calendar year, you start to get a little bit more nervous. It certainly can present a longer timeline or different hurdles the next time around. So I agree with you. That's a big concern too. It'd probably be my biggest concern if it wasn't three guys at the same position that are out there with him.
Definitely a big question when you sit there and you look at what is going on with all those receivers, and it's going to be hard. We're gonna have to see how this goes over the next couple of weeks. Obviously, they have this pretty much a bye week this week. I think they're going to be putting in some game plan, and I think that that's really what they're going to focus on this week. I don't know if they're actually going to have physical practice. We'll see, in the coming days if they actually have a practice or not, or if they're just going to be doing game planning and really trying to give the players as much rest as they possibly can, knowing that this is an extended season. You have to remember they had 17 games this year, plus divisional playoffs, championship playoffs, and now you're adding a third game. And I'm not saying you don't want to add the third game, but
Right.
that's a lot of wear and tear on the body. So you want to try to give them as much rest as you can and take advantage of the bye.
It's 2019 and 20. I mean, it's an enormous volume of snaps and games in this last 3-year stretch. So I agree with you. I think they do have to get one day where they pop a little bit, like certainly not anything full contact, but sometime in this span of 2 weeks, I think they have to get to some of that. We're going to talk about when that should be and how they're going about it on the backside here, because there's a lot to get to about how do you prepare about this special game in particular, because it's so unique. A lot of things are pretty unique about this whole situation. Hopefully they get some resolution with some of the injuries. So we'll get to that here in a minute, but we want to tell you about our friends from FanDuel, because this is the way. This year, the only app that you want for a Super Bowl party is FanDuel, because it's the #1 sports book in America. We're really excited about our newest betting partner in FanDuel, because right now they're the #1 all across the nation. You can bet with them, and they have great tools, and they make the whole experience even better. They have the features that you want to make it not only fun, but easy as well. You can download it now and go get that app, and you get 57. This Super Bowl 57 can be a no sweat first bet. That's a nice way to put that. You'll also get $1,000 back on bonus bets if your first one doesn't win. So they're building in something easy for you. So I think that helps, because when I take a look at it, like building it in so you can get started, I think is one of the hurdles. The sports book app itself from FanDuel is safe, it's secure. You got to get in there and use it though. And luckily it's super easy. So that helps. Best of all, you can get your winnings paid to you instantly. So make sure you check them out. You can join FanDuel today at FanDuel.com/lockedon. Claim your no sweat first bet on Super Bowl 57, and that's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook sponsor of the NFL. And if you're not happy with that, then I think you need to take a step up into another world where you can be your own GM. Everybody wants to be that, even me. And by playing Ultimate GM, you can take your franchise through an evolution. Chris, what's the biggest number you've gotten to yet, number of seasons?
I actually went all the way through and did all 25, and I actually took third place in our Ultimate GM challenge across the teams.
It's a great challenge. And if you can do that for years worth of hiring the right coaches, doing the coordinators, training the players, trying to acquire new talent, navigating through your franchise, through free agency, through the draft, everything that goes into building a season is there on Ultimate Football GM. You want to check this out. It's a fun game. And I think something that's a really unique exercise to take a look at what goes on in the league every day that we don't talk about. Ultimate GM is completely free. It's playable online. You can play on the go and do whatever you want when you want. It's created. We have created a special Locked On League for you to compete against all the Locked On fans all over the world. And you can do that by joining Ultimate Locked On Football GM. Choose the Locked On, that's all one word in quotes, league, and you can join that right now. You can create your own football dynasty. So Locked On Chiefs listeners get 100% off of a free boost for their franchise when they use our promo code. And that is, again, all caps, Locked On, all one word. And that helps you get everything that you want out of this game in this game store. So download it now. Just go to ultimate-.com. ultimate-gm.com, sorry. And look up the app in any of the stores. You can find it everywhere, whether it's Android or Apple, whatever you're trying to do. It's ultimate-gm.com. The ultimate football GM. Start your fantasy dynasty today. So, in the middle of all those dynasties, this is like the fledgling one for the Kansas City Chiefs. And that's what I want to get to, because this week is kind of unique, I think, logistically, preparation-wise. But it's also unique because of where it's coming, because of what we've seen with this run of AFC championships and now Super Bowls. I think it makes it more important. It's not that it makes it easier, because every Super Bowl, I think, is different and every opponent is real. But having that urgency because you've been there once and won, you've been there once and lost. Now I think that makes, like, you're on the edge of a dynasty yourself. And I think that puts the emphasis on Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, all the leaders, all the guys that have been there before. But it also, I think, lifts up the rookies. And we've talked so much about how much the rookies have contributed this year, how much the second-year guys contributed last year. That pushes them towards, we have to come through for the vets as well, and we have to get our piece of this dynasty by getting it done right now.
They absolutely have to, and I think that, you're looking at a dynasty in the making is really what you're looking at. If they find a way to win this game, they will have 2 Super Bowls in the last couple of seasons, and that's fantastic. I mean, last 4 seasons, they will have won 2 of the Super Bowls. Funny enough, this is Patrick Mahomes' first time to wear a away uniform in a playoff game.
Okay.
He's always been home because they've been hosting all the games, and in the Super Bowl, he was wearing the home jerseys as well. So interesting to think about in that regard.
Which is funny, because this Super Bowl stadium is actually closer to Kansas City than the last one they played in. So it's really kind of interesting that way. But yeah, you got to change it up. I know there's a lot of talk about, is it going to be the white on white, whatever it is. Bottom line is, as long as it's a constrict movement, you can play the way that you need to play, I think it's all going to be good. But it does go into the logistics. They got to ship those uniforms. They got to have all their gear in Arizona. They have to make sure that they're doing what they can now to be prepared for next week when they're there. I do believe they travel on Monday. We should see some arrival footage, etc. There's an experience that the media will be at and all that. We should see some of that. But that condenses, I think, what you have to get done this week. And so, like I said in the last segment, sometime in this period, you have to get something where you get some pop. You got to have the physical part of the game. I don't think the physicality of this game is going to be as dramatic as it was for the last contest against the Bengals. But I do think it's important to get one of those days in, Chris. Do you agree? And where should it be?
Well, I do agree. I do think that they're going to have that physicality. I'm guessing it's going to end up being in Arizona where they practice. I don't think it's going to be this week. I think that they are trying to get these players as healthy as they can. And I think the problem with doing it this week is then you're not really giving them a week off. Having them in for game planning, having them in trying to get the offense in and the defense installed and all that is different. Mental is way different than it is the physical. So if you can give their bodies a full week off, I think it benefits them more. So I'm hoping that they're just going to let them have this week off physically, and they'll have a padded practice in Arizona when they get there.
I like that plan, because it allows all these guys that we talked about in the first segment to recover a little bit, to get hopefully that much more treatment, that much more time off their feet, where they're in meetings, working film.
To be fair, it allows everybody that. There's not a person on the roster that doesn't have some kind of injury, whether or not it's reported.
Right.
They're dealing with pains in their body in somewhere. So it's giving everybody that opportunity.
That's a great point. Nobody makes it this far in a season without some aches and pains. Something's bothering everyone. I'm with you there. And that whole thing leads to doing more game planning, doing more install mentally than physically, being off your feet a little bit more, doing the film work. I think there's some similarities in the way that they can attack the Philadelphia Eagles, as well as running scout. I think there's some enough crossover that I feel good about their preparations, whether it is in Kansas City or when it does go out to Arizona. I think they have to do that. And if they can get that one padded practice in next week, I would like to see that just so that they go in ready with whoever's going to be good to go and actually get back at it. I think they needed this lift in being so frustrated, so locked on that last opponent, like Patrick talked about in his post game. They need to find a way to find that switch to light them up, so they have that mentality again. I think
They do. They're going to need that. But I would also say that I think another thing that this week off gives them is a lot of teams, and this will be interesting to see how it plays out in the Super Bowl. But if you look at the 49ers, there's not a team that played them, I don't think, this season that hasn't lost the next game that they played, except for Kansas City, who was on a bye the week after the 49ers. That's the only team. So now the question is that going to affect the Eagles? We'll see. There's going to be questions on that. The 49ers are a physical team. That's all it comes down to. But it also gives Kansas City a chance because this was a physical game against the Bengals and an emotional game against the Bengals.
Yeah.
Getting all of that taken care of and not having a emotional letdown going in the Super Bowl, I think is going to be huge. And I don't expect that the team would, but there's a lot of energy that went into last week's game because of all the talk.
You're absolutely right. It takes the leaders to kind of lead in order to get back to that point. You got to find something to get you motivated. There's a way to do that is, while it's still artificial, it's a way that produces what you're looking for. And you don't have to rely on the mayor of some town in Ohio to get you riled up. You know what I mean? There are other ways to do that. One of the guys that was the king of that has now decided, maybe for the last time, that he's not going to be involved in this game. We're going to talk about him and the effects that we can use from what we learned from Tom Brady here for Patrick Mahomes and the rest of this team. But first, got to get to our friends over at PrizePicks because this is hot. This is the ultimate game that you want to play for daily fantasy sports, and they're going to help you out by setting you up. Right now, there's a special running. The line on Patrick is sitting at 285.5 for yardage for performance. But right now, for the next, I think, 200 hours, they're running a special that it's 0.5 yards. So as long as he gets a yard, you win. It's an easy bet, and it helps you get into daily fantasy sports the way that only PrizePicks can do it. You just have to pick more or less. They'll set you a line. It's not just Patrick, it's Jalen Hurts as well at 238.5. And you pick, are they going to produce more or less? You take 2 to 5 entries and you roll those together. And that entry can win you up to 25 times your money. That's what you're looking for. You might even be able to add a little sixth episode in there because if you take the more for Patrick at 285, you might as well take the more for Patrick at 05. It's a nice bonus there that you want to get into. You don't have to compete against other people or set multiple lineups or projections or any of that. You just choose what you want, roll it up in there, take 60 seconds or less. It's easy, it's safe, it's fast withdrawals. It's available nearly everywhere in 30 states plus Canada. You can play all these other sports, but we know, especially this week, there is no other sport you want to play right now other than the NFL. So all you got to do is get the PrizePicks app. You can get it in any app store. You can go to prizepicks.com, super easy, and play daily fantasy sports. You can receive a 100% instant deposit bonus up to $100 by using our code that's down here. It says locked on, all one word. That's what you want to use at prizepicks.com. Check them out. Now, if I was going to pick them, certainly 0.5 was going to be a plus. The fact that it's there, that somebody's saying we're going to give you such an easy bet that Patrick's going to throw at least 1 yard, that might piss him off. That might be motivation. And he's got to take his cues from Tom Brady's retirement today, an emotional delivery by Tom Brady. Maybe it was heartfelt. Second year in a row, he retired on this particular day. But one thing that he said to Patrick a couple of years ago was that you have to make sure that you maintain your edge. And that was paraphrasing there, but that's something that Patrick's done really well. And I think if he can take a little bit of that from Tom Brady, a little bit from Michael Jordan, and come up with something that can push his motivation, I think that trickles down to the rest of the roster. And that's what they have to have this week.
They absolutely have to have it. And Patrick is one of the guys that is going to be, obviously, he's the leader of this team. He is what this team is. And he's going to have to deliver that to the team. He's going to have to get them fired up. He's going to have to, help get that energy there and give them the motivation. I mean, you're not going to need motivation for the Super Bowl, but you do need motivation to stay locked in or locked on the entire 2-week time. Yeah. the entire 2-week time, because there is so many details that go into all of this planning and anything that you're going to be doing in that game. If you can maintain that focus the entire time, you're going to be in great shape going into that game. I think that's going to be huge.
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully it can rub off on everybody else too. I think Chris Jones set the tone last week. Clearly he was upset by the Burrowhead comments and that kind of thing. It's time to move past that. He's got to find something else to get not only him motivated, but his entire room. All the defensive front has to be on fire against Jalen Hurts and the run attack that's going to come at them. How they choose to align, I think, is going to still a question, but they have to bring their A game and be up for it.
And I think that they're going to be up for it because of the Eagles' offense that is going to be presented to them. I think that that's going to be huge. Now, on the flip side, I have to ask a quick question because I found this very interesting. Who do you think the best QB that the Eagles played all year on defense was?
Let's see. Dak? I don't know.
Played Aaron Rodgers.
Oh, okay.
They played Jared Goff and they won that game, but they allowed 30 points. My point is, this Eagles defense really has not been tested this year with good QB play. That's going to be something that's going to change in this game. It's going to be very fascinating to see how they adjust. I'm not saying they're not a good defense. I think they are, but I don't know that they're as dominant as people are giving them credit for. Because if you go look at who they played, yeah, they played Dak. Dak's an okay QB. He's not Patrick Mahomes. Nobody in the NFL is, but the closest you had all season was they played Aaron Rodgers. They played Trevor Lawrence. Those are probably the best two QBs they played. They played Kyler Murray, if you want to throw him in that conversation.
Yeah, I think Aaron was still in Con Air mode. That's why I tried to block it out of my mind, I'm pretty sure. So I can't say that was even that improved play. So you have a very good point. I don't know who's calling the Eagles defense dominant in any way, because I wouldn't put that word on them, whether you're talking about Dak or anybody else, let alone Aaron Rodgers. But you have a very good point. Like they have to raise their game as well. The pressure's on them just as much as anyone else.
Pass rush is fantastic. They have a lot of pass rushers. They can get after the quarterback. So that's going to be a question, and that's something that they've shown throughout the season is they can get after the passers. So that's going to be something that Kansas City is going to have to be ready for. I would agree. I'm not saying that they've been called dominant, but my point is they haven't played offenses like Kansas City this season. Even the Packers offense wasn't that good this year, and the Packers offense put up over 30 points on them.
Well, let's hope that leads to the trail that Patrick wants to go down. With the mobility, we'll see how he looks again this week. I can't say that he was, I don't know, 85% maybe last week was probably my guess. I don't know. Maybe he can get up to 90, 95.
2 more weeks of the training that they have him putting through, and I guarantee you he has not missed a day of any of trying to get his ankle right, because he doesn't want a repeat of going into a Super Bowl injured. He's going to be as close to 100% as he can possibly get on that foot, because he doesn't want a repeat of what happened with Tampa Bay. He fought his way through it, but he wasn't right in that game.
Agreed.
There's a lot of reasons they lost that game, and none of them are Patrick Mahomes.
And I think that they just need to erase those, and they have to raise their level with their leaders. We're going to talk about them coming up as well as we get ready and closer to where they depart for Arizona and how they get on there. You're going to hear from Matt and Derek. You're going to hear from our old friend Seth Kaiser's coming. I will be back again. We have a lot of content for you. Make sure you like, sub, and hit the bell here on YouTube. Join us. If you're not a Chiefs fan yet, there's room in here. You can come on board. Make sure that you grab the audio feeds as well, because we're over on Spotify and Apple and everywhere else you can get a podcast. So we try to make sure we put it out all the time for you at a convenient spot for you. Make that your thought, and please be back with us tomorrow. We appreciate your time listening today, and we'll be back with you then.